Karini. Alright, this morning I'm going to talk about public schools are better than private schools. Well, public schools is a school that are operated or provided by the government with all free facilities ranging from classes to teachers being paid by government to provide all facilities. Public schools are usually very popular because of the relatively affordable cost of education. So, private schools. Private schools, also known as independent schools or non-state schools, is a school that is not controlled by governments, and also private schools are often more expensive than other schools. Yes, I strongly believe that public schools are better than private schools. Firstly, imagine a world without public schools or even any service funded by tax. You will have a brutally skilled society. One part skilled children with no understanding of how to take care of themselves, which would most likely adopt a lower life expectancy of that group. The other educated and superior because they have money, right? Without the public schools, the pool of educated and talented means would depend solely on if you were rich or not, right? Also, all the luxurious that those who can afford private schools would most likely be scarred because it takes more than private educated rich kids to make society work. In fact, without the public sector being educated properly, the rich would cease to be eventually, as they would have no one capable of providing the vital services on which their money is used. This is partly based on the effect without public schools. However, I will also look at the advantages specifically given from public schools. With public schools educations, you are likely to develop greater social skills and also live a fuller and more enjoyable life. Because life is not about the good things that come easy, right? But it's about experiencing the good and the bad. Being mixed with the good and the bad and building yourself based on your experiences. The public school teachers also have a higher percentage of master's degrees, about 48% compared to 36% in private schools. Also, more public school teachers participate in some form of professional development every year than private schools teachers do. Public schools are paid for by local taxes and except for some small fees are free. The biggest perk of attending a public schools over a private schools. Public schools have a set of standards to hold to, with the teachers that are state certified and special education programs for students that learn differently from others. Public schools are notably more diverse, so private schools will be measuring tolerance on a smaller and less unique scales. Public schools are better than private schools. Yes, absolutely. Because the first, it doesn't have school fees. Second, it is not restricted to any religion. The third, subjects are taught the same as in private schools. And the fourth, there are public schools in all suburbs and cities, so children will be easy find if parents move. And the five, there is no admission test in public schools. And the six, public schools have a lot of resources and qualified teachers. And last, students can meet other students' various backgrounds and beliefs. Alright, that's my arguments about the public schools are better than private schools. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Putri Arsila Sabila and I will give my argument. Alright, I'm agree with what Justika said, but in general, private schools are not always underestimated by many people. Even there are many advantages of private schools. Of course, every parent wants the best education for their children. In this modern era, many millennial parents are considering private schools for their children. The reason, none other than because of more complete facilities and the number of students is not so much. From the facilities, how to learn, the number of students, and the attitude of students is certainly different from public schools. Yeah. And then the advantage of private schools include one, facilities, of course. Private schools have very complete facilities like air conditioner, LCD projectors, laptops, and other learning that are very useful for learning activities. And also, private schools have sport facilities, bathrooms, and the canteens that are very cleaner, so as to make students certain more comfortable. And two, number of students. The large number of students influence the level of teacher attention for each child. In public schools, teachers tend to only pay attention to students who stand out, but in terms of intelligence and delinquency, while students who are an average become invisible and less noticed. While private schools have fewer students, the teacher will be able to understand the characteristics of each student. And then 3. How to study. Students in the private sector look more dynamic and are able to voice their opinions better in public because they are used to having discussion, engaging and learning activities with the teacher in class, expressing opinion and agreeing the common and commonplace. And also, public schools will be owned by the government with an education budget which will certainly be cheaper than private schools. But Justika said, private schools have smaller tolerance and less unity scale. This is clearly wrong because expensive private schools certainly have a lot of scale in them. And I think expensive is relative. Before you say expensive, you must know in advance why the school is expensive. Because of the complete facilities, the best extracurricular activities that require expensive fees, or from experienced teachers who cannot afford to pay cheaply. You also have to compare the needs and the wants sector. Yeah, I think your child needs the best school and you definitely want the best thing for your child because public schools and private schools clearly have significant difference, and your advantage is to send your children to an expensive private school. That is, your child gets best education and you personally get a good social strata because education is the best place and indicating that you are not reluctant to spend money for children's education in the future. Yeah, I think it's enough from me. Thank you.
That's true, but most of parents in Indonesia want to send their children to public school. The advantages of public school are less good than private school. The first one is cost. In public school, we can save our money. There's no best money because it is subsidized by the government. The second one is education quality. The quality of education in public school is not inferior to the quality of education in private school. In fact, the quality of education in public school is superior than to private school. Public school generally use a curriculum determined directly by the government, such as 2030 curriculum, which is very good. The 2013 curriculum is used by public schools. In this curriculum, students are asked to be active in teaching and learning activities. Students are asked to study in groups and also make a presentation. This is good for students because students will learn how to talk in front of people and also understand how to work in groups. This is different from private school that use a foreign curriculum. The overseas curriculum is good, but it will make it difficult for students because the chapter they study are certainly different. The third one is society. Public schools are schools that can be enjoyed by anyone. It met many students from various tribes and religion in public school. This is good for children relationship because children will understand more about differences and will also have a high tolerance. Association with many differences will also foster a fair attitude in children. In contrast to private schools that are usually devoted to a particular belief, this will make a child surprised if he already knows the outside world better because accustomed to hang out with people of the same class as them, especially in private school, also usually from middle to upper economic groups. The association is identical to hedonism. This will make our child accustomed to playing in a luxurious environment and make them a wasteful life. At private school, usually there are also groups who only want to play with certain groups. This is not good for children's mentality. The fourth one is facility. The facility in public school are provided directly by the government. This can make students become more enthusiastic in undergoing teaching and learning activities. The facilities provided by the government will help students because they don't have to pay additional fees for facilities. The fifth one is pride. When we can send our children to public school, of course, it will give a sense of pride because our children can go to public schools. It is not easy to enter public school because everyone wants to enter public school. Low costs make a lot of demand. Finally, natural selection takes place where only the smart and high grades can attend public school. It's different from private school that anyone can attend at the school as long as they have money. So attending public school is definitely more proud than private schools. The sixth one is outlet by public university. Public schools are also usually more often looked by universities. This becomes more points for students who go to public school. Often glimpsed by public universities can be our bridge to send our children to the next stage.
My name is Vidya Melnia, and I want to say the quality of education has become an important to be considered by every parent whenever they are. I agree, and I can't be denied that public schools are usually very popular because of the relatively affordable education cost. But in big cities, private schools are in demand because of students' competencies and achievements of students' competencies that have proven to be good. And parents are also willing to spend more on several other reasons why private schools are better choice than public schools. First, it is undeniable that private schools are among the few students who fail to enter the public schools. But for international schools, they are not affected by this zoning or natural selection system so that they can enter any time. Second, regarding the curriculum in private school that apply the Cambridge, Australia, New York curriculum, and of course have teaching and learning activities that are far different from national curriculum. Third, how to study in private schools, more discussion, presentation of in front of class, and debating and arguing arguments, and discusses students of private school more active than public schools. Fourth, indeed, private schools are more expensive because according to the fulfillment of facilities and infrastructure in schools to develop students' interests and talents, and something body is not cheap. Because private schools have the advantage, and not all private schools are expensive. They are also relatively cheap to internationals. Fifth, private schools are also seen by state university. But if students in private schools want to continue studying abroad, of course it will be easier because in terms of the quality of learning that is already international, while public schools are somewhat more difficult. These are some of the advantages provided by private schools when compared to public schools, although it requires no small cost. It can be concluded that each student, both public or private, has its own advantage and disadvantage. The best schools is not only determined by social status as the public schools or private schools, but also based on development of the character and social sensitivity shown by each student while studying at school. Thank you.